Hey, uh, some of you are ending with your practice clients, and I wanted to make a video about saying some things about termination so you have some things to think about. I have to pick up my son 25 minutes, so it's good for me to have a limit. So let me share my concrete thoughts and then maybe talk more about subtext and all this. So I would start by letting them know that this will be our last session. Uh, my thought is the last session isn't time for something new, although it wouldn't be surprising if somebody reveals something they haven't said up to this point to you. Uh, and I would say, I'm glad you're bringing this up. We don't have time to make more sense out of it, given this is our last session, but I appreciate hearing this about you and that complexity of that you're working with here. So some things I think I would ask would be something in this general plan that you could have is see what they start up with uh, and say, "Oh, I wanted to ask, how has this experience been for you? Uh, what are you taking away?" So there's this idea that there's in the research there's processing that happens, and then in termination is a kind of a way to kind of label or concretize some new learning, some new narratives in some way, which can be helpful. So you could see what they say about what they might be taking away. Uh, After that, I might ask a question, something like, from our time together, is there anything that came up that as we stop here that you think you might want to continue trying to understand about yourself or about relationships? What might be the next step in your growth as you see it, if there is one? Um, then, after they did this, so what did they get? What's left undone? I might ask them, do you have any thoughts or comments or anything you'd like to say to me? And then see how they handle that. And uh, some people might get real personal with you about their feelings, which I think I'll talk about later. But I think you probably had a much greater impact on them than you might think that you're having. And I would also, near 10 minutes left or so, 15 minutes left, uh, uh, ask them something like, is there any feedback you want to give me about the role I've played uh, with you? Anything you want to say about me and my therapeutic work? And just take it. It may not be true. It's always something to think about it. And then maybe, 10 minutes left in the last session. Although you could bring this up at the beginning of the session or earlier than last session, a question such as, uh, oh, now that we're done with this, you can see I'm reiterating the termination theme here, which I think is needed and not to deny it. Uh, if we run into each other in the hallway, do you have any thoughts about how you'd like us to be together? So, these are more open ended questions. If they might want you to say hi, they may not want you to say hi. But I think it's good to know because I think it will be awkward those first few times you see them, and some of the roles that you were in as you were as the helper and you and them as the client get pretty deeply embedded. I think, right? Uh, so you can also think about what you want, right? Some people want to continue with you and keep a relationship with you. And I could imagine you saying something along the lines, and you can blame me if you want, but you can, of course, do what you want. Saying something like, "Oh, my professor recommended that after we finish this assignment together, that I should not talk to the person I worked with or not have much intimate contact with them." for 3 months, or you could say 6 months, or if you don't really want to interact with that person more, just say, my professor recommended I don't. That is not helpful for me to have continued contact, and I'm going to try that. So you can blame me. You can give out my name. I'm sure some of these Naropa students know way better than I do about all this stuff. Uh, and then I would also reiterate confidentiality at the end. So I want to remind you that everything you said to me, I will hold in confidence outside of what I have to share with my professor in my class, which is mainly focusing on my developing skills. And I might ask you to see if you would do the same. Uh, and things I've shared about myself is a way for you to hold that if you can. I mean, this is a big issue for me with Naropa students. Is one of the biggest skills of therapists is containment. We don't say what we think and our feelings and our impulses. We don't follow these, and we hold so much feelings and so many ideas and so much secondary trauma that how do we not leak that out, not take that energy and spread it around? And what's your self-care for uh, being that container for other people's pain in some way? And I think uh, I'll go into the next section. So I think when you're coming into termination, as probably happened throughout the sessions with your client, is that echoes of the past will be alive uh, for you and for them. So you could bring uh, these questions to yourself prior to the last session, but ask, how has your family or how has your community handled endings in the past? What do you see as a normal ending, or what's your projection on what would be a good ending in therapy? It just makes me think of, for some reason, this comes up that I had when I was in high school, a very close friend, best man at my wedding's older brother died in a car accident, and at the wake, an Italian family at the wake, everyone got really drunk and kind of fought with each other about who loved him more and who he loved more. And then the mother threw herself into the casket and wouldn't get out. And it was really moving, but also, I think, high drama. And that's how some families and work with termination. Other families might really minimize it and say, like, "Oh, I'll see you around." Uh, but guess I'm asking you to explore yourself. What does your family and the community you, because I think unconsciously those enactments of following these cultural paradigms that live in our heads may get elicited, and to be aware of them may help us prevent just blindly following them in some way. Um, but that's only half the story. So even a third of the story. I think the other part of the story, which you could ask in this session, is how have you handled endings in the past? How has your family or community handled endings in the past? Uh, because likely that may come and happen in this session. I could imagine you saying after that, okay, it sounds like your family got really intellectual, hypothetically, at the end. I mean, during terminations, where they tried to make it all rainbows and butterflies at termination. How would you like us to end? Well, what speaks to you about endings? Would you like to do it that way? And why? Would you like to do it a different way? And why? Um, so they're going to be coming in and most likely trying to play out an unconscious enactment of how they do termination. Uh, so I think bringing up that the options and the choices is really important there, and it's really important for people to learn about how they do endings and transitional spaces and things like that. Uh, and then I think the third person that's in the room is a larger society in some way. So we might each have our subcultures within um, our lives, and then we're working within the United States within Europa. And so I think the pull to do what these cultures have modeled around ending uh, could be very much alive for both you and the client. So I don't know exactly how, I don't want to overly generalize about how, say, uh, these, the United States, say, and Europa, which two different cultures, handle endings, but it seems like there's often a lot of praise, or there can be a lot of ignoring of the ending or minimizing the impact. It wouldn't be surprising if clients were a little more distant in this last session. And it also wouldn't be surprising if clients were a lot more uh, expressive in the last session, right? So I wonder what enactments the two of you will be called into, right? I can think of clients I've had that in that last session, they'll they'll doorknob something very significant about trauma, or they'll cry in the last 5 minutes, and get caught in an enactment of having to end the session and end our time and end our termination in a way that feels most likely really bad for them, and there's a repetition or a habitual pattern for them in some way. Um, so I think this is just, this is where your meditation practice and mindfulness comes in, that you can notice the various impulses that may be coming from you and your history around termination, may be coming from the client and their history around termination, or also around what the culture says how we should do termination. And most likely you and your practice client will have different views about this. And you could even talk about, how should we end? Right? What's your thoughts about that? I wouldn't give a lot of feedback or try to provide a tremendous amount of insight in this last session. I think this is more wrapping them up and sending them on their way. If there is something you do want to try to give feedback on gently to them in this last session, I would do that very, very early on. But this goes back to containment. As a therapist, we have many ideas. We think we see what's going on with our clients. That doesn't mean we have to say that. And in some ways, we don't have to say that. We could just enact something different, which would be a curative emotional experience, which I think is more powerful than a cognitive explanation in any way. So I think it's, as you move forward and you might see these people, I think will most likely be easier for you to just see them as another Naropa student. But I think their experience of you will be much more powerful. That you've heard their secrets, you've heard their struggles. They might feel tremendous vulnerability uh, in having shared what they shared with you. And if you do run into them, I think, is there some subtle way that you cannot fall into that dynamic that you created, where you're the student therapist and they're the student client in some way? So I think of small talk or broaching around new topics, or if they go there, is there a way that you can gently sidestep that and bring it to something else? Oh, what classes are you finishing up? Or what are you thinking about internship, or something like that? But I think you want to de-roll, and you want to let them know that in whatever way you do this, that the two of you will be de-rolling from this uh, what you were doing together. Um, and of course, therapy is interminable. We're never done. We're never ending with it. There's always more to say, more to understand, more depths to go to, and that's okay. The goal of this assignment was for you to practice therapeutic interventions, and you could even bring that in. You could even ask them, was there any interventions you liked or didn't like? And just don't argue with them. Try not to get defensive, of course. Note what they say, consider it, maybe talk with your classmates or with one of your professors about what they said. Um, and hopefully, these 5 sessions will have been something that you've learned from and hopefully eased your comfort in being in this role more. Um, so I think that's just a few things. I mean, as always, I would pull out a book. I pulled out this one earlier before making this video. I didn't find it that helpful. Psychodynamic Techniques with Karen Marotta. You could pull out a book. I have a book over here on existential therapy, and you could pull that out and talk about, see what they say about how to terminate. You could go online and see what you find about terminating, ending therapy, and see if they have any suggestions. And this is practice, so you could try something new or different for yourself. And I'm always interested in people doing new things and even therapists doing new things. But so you could, consider how to end the session potentially in a more professional way and not in some kind of your own family community or some kind of larger cultural enactment of termination. Um, I'm not someone who is that doesn't hug and barely touches my clients. There are exceptions for that. I read it case by case what would be most therapeutic and most curative for them. But I imagine people might want a hug from you. I imagine there might be people who want to. Let me stop there. I would. I don't think you're going to hug your clients or that often. I think it's limiting, right? It's then you have to make nice. It sets up a repetition. Why can't it be like real life and a therapy session ends unresolved or even with some hostility and more things to talk about? So I think the pull to make it be really nice will be really strong. And I think you have to practice holding your boundaries and your time boundaries and potentially even your boundaries around what you would like to accomplish in this last session and bring the client back to what did you learn? Did you learn anything about yourself during our time? Is there anything that you're thinking you want to think more about moving forward? I think you could thank them for doing this with you and helping you build your skills. And I think you get the general idea here that really stressing reality principle, that this was which people hate reality, right? Uh, that this was a practice session and it meant a lot to you and you learned a lot and you enjoyed meeting with them and you're wishing them the best as they move forward. But of course, you can do it your way. And it'll probably be nice for you to have this assignment done and probably some lingering thoughts that you'll have about, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that, which is helpful as long as it's balanced with what you did do well in these sessions. And right, in this culture, we get way more criticism than compliments and praise. And try not to do that too meanly with yourself. Um, well, I look forward to hearing about your termination. I'm guessing you may have terminated therapy as a client. You could reflect on that, what seemed good or bad. And I'm guessing you've terminated relationships, and those echoes will come up. And do you want to follow those or not follow those? Wonderful work. I think it's really challenging, this assignment, to work with another Naropa student from another program in this faux therapy situation. So I want you to feel good that you completed it, and that most likely you learned something from it. And my guess is most likely, whether your student therapists tell you or not, it has been helpful for them to talk and be seen and be listened to. So I guess we have, I won't see most of you in the third year. So we have a few more weeks before most likely our termination together. And then I think I'll come to your graduation. But I don't know if you've had these Buddhist readings about Bardo and transitional spaces, liminal spaces, but endings are part of life, and can bring up grief. And like I like to say, could also bring up relief that you're done with what you have to get done for this class. Okay, you take care of yourself, and I will see you on Monday. Bye.